Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the infinite versions of our universe. Okay. Let's start off at the beginning. Well, the beginning of what is our observable universe, which was the Big Bang that happened 13.8 billion years ago. This is when our observable universe was born, which is finite, but the universe itself, which our universe is a small part of, is infinite and could have been born infinite. Since we can put a timeline on when our universe came into existence, which is that 13.8 billion years we just talked about, we can place a timeline on the things in our own universe. Everything in our universe is finite. But beyond our universe and the stars and galaxies and matter and all of that sciencey stuff is the universe, which would lead us to believe that there are many more infinite universes that are just like our own, but that are beyond our knowledge because of the fact that the speed of light, as well as the beginning of ours, the Big Bang, is finite. If there is an infinite amount of universe out there, then it only seems reasonable to believe that the same sort of creation of our finite universe happened an infinite amount of times. In our number 9 spot today, we have infinite universes. Piggybacking off of that last point, we have the fact that there just might be even more universes. Like, not just more of our kind of universe, but more of the universe. The Big Bang started off our universe, but it was not the beginning of everything. The Big Bang, which we all know happened when? 13.8 billion years ago, was the first time the universe could be described as hot, dense, and full of matter and antimatter and radiation and all of that, but there was stuff going on before that happened. Prior to the Big Bang, there was a period of cosmic inflation. This inflation leads to the growing of space-time, and this means that if that period occurred for an infinite amount of time, there could be an infinite amount of universes that are all finite, and one of these universes happens to contain ours. Does that make sense? This video really is all a person needs to feel exceptionally small and very insignificant. In our number 8 spot today, we have daughter universes. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far. Let's try and make this the universe where this video has the most likes. Let's do it. This one is just a theory about if there are multiple parallel universes that exist and what they contain. This is where the theory of daughter universes comes into play. It is possible that multiple universes may follow the theory of quantum mechanics, which is how subatomic particles behave. Following the laws of probability, the daughter universes happen when you are faced with a decision. In our reality, you make your decision and it plays out one way, but in the daughter universes, they would each involve you making every other decision you could have made in that moment, which would then lead to whatever outcome that decision would have ended up leading to. This just means that there may be a universe for the opposite of every decision you've ever made in your life, and one for every decision anyone has ever made. How likely is this? I'm not sure, but if we ever find a way to jump to other universes, there goes the days of regret. In our number 7 spot today, we have bubble universes. For this one, we need to imagine our universe as a bubble, which it kind of is. The swelling bubble of our universe is just one bubble among many. Well, as we all now know, it is possibly just one among an infinite amount, all of which are swelling and expanding. All these bubbles make up the multiverse. This itself is of course just a theory that was made in an attempt to understand the origins and beginnings of our universe, but now it is being researched further. Physicists have begun studies on how and when universes might collide and bubble up together. I do understand that this is not concrete proof or evidence, but we wouldn't be researching it if it wasn't a possibility. This research could potentially lead us in the direction where we get to see some real proof, or at the very least, give us a better understanding into the theories of how multiple universes exist and how they could potentially interact with one another. In our number 6 spot today, we have the lack of evidence. This evidence is more so about the lack of evidence there is to say that the multiverse doesn't exist. Many scientists find the idea of the multiverse alarming or even unscientific because of the fact that there's no way for us to test for it. There is no way to make predictions that fall in line with data, and no way to really verify its existence, whether it's one parallel universe or an infinite amount. But there isn't really any evidence or data to support the theory that we are the only universe that exists. If our universe was created basically out of happenstance, what could stop another universe from being created at the same time or out of a similar happenstance? The idea and theory of the multiverse itself is relatively quite young and new, so it is possible that we will find the evidence to persuade most of us to one side or another, but as of right now, anything is possible. And maybe in another parallel universe, we already know all about the existence of this one. Maybe there's another me watching me make this video being like, oh, you don't know anything. In our number 5 spot today, we have the cold spot. The cold spot was first discovered in 2004, and it is basically just what it sounds like. It's an area in the universe that is slightly colder than that surrounding it. And when I say slightly, I really do mean very slightly. But when I call it an area, I'm talking about a huge one, as it is around 1.8 billion light years across. It was first believed that this area may be colder due to a lack of galaxies, but a newer study suggested that that is not possible, which led researchers down a different path in search of new theories as to why the cold spot exists. One of the most exciting is the theory that this may have occurred due to a collision between our universe and another bubble universe. A bubble universe is what we just spoke about in the last part, and they make up the multiverse, which would be the uncountable realms that all sit side by side, but that are in higher dimensions than our senses are able to interpret. This, of course, is a theory, and it will require a lot of time and research before we can say for certain, but it truly is kind of crazy to think that a huge, colder area of the universe could be due to a bump-in with another universe entirely. In our number 4 spot today, we have the CMB. After the Big Bang, it took around 300,000 years for things to cool down enough in order to allow atoms to form and to allow light to travel freely. This was known as the recombination, and during this time, that is when the cosmic microwave background began. The CMB is electromagnetic radiation that fills all of space, and while the space in between stars and planets and such may seem to be completely dark, the CMB is there and can sometimes, through sensitive enough technology, be seen as a kind of glow. So, how does this play into what we're talking about today? Well, scientists noticed a sort of bruise on the CMB during research, which left them wondering why. This is what led to this next parallel universe theory. If our universes are all like bubbles and one bumps into the other, it's possible that they may merge, even just for a second. This could cause some parts of one universe to spill into the other before eventually parting ways again, but this collision surely would leave some sort of a mark. And that mark just may be the bruise we saw in the CMB. In our number 3 spot today, we have the CMB Part 2. So you know what the CMB is now, and there's another thing we are looking for in it that might give us a sign of the multiverse. We thought we found evidence of this back in 2014, but it may have been a false detection, but we continue to look. Gravitational waves, which are ripples in space and time, are what we are looking for right now. The waves would have been left over from the Big Bang, and they could be putting tiny curls into the CMB. If found, this would prove the theory of cosmic inflation, which we discussed close to the beginning of this video in number 9, which would then lead us to the creation of multiple universes. It's all linked together in the most insane ways, but the universe is very cool and very complex. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Mandela effect. So, thinking about what we just talked about with the bruise and the CMB, and if our bubble universes really did collide with some other universe, and they had a moment where they may have been interconnected in some way, then this would explain the Mandela effect. If you don't know, the Mandela effect began being widely recognized when people began to swear that they could remember Nelson Mandela passing away in the 1980s. This is of course weird since he actually passed away in 2013. This time discrepancy had people obviously confused, and it has happened with many other things such as the Berenstain Bears, the movie Kazam, and honestly a whole bunch of things. There are many theories as to why the Mandela effect happens, and one of them certainly is the belief in multiple universes and some sort of crossover happening between the two. This, coupled with the possibility of colliding universes, is hard to comprehend, but it does kind of make sense. In our number 1 spot today, we have the strange particle. This might be the most concrete evidence, but we still don't really know what it means. This evidence came to us originally in 2016, but it took a few years for it to be interpreted in the way that might suggest the potential of a parallel universe. During experiments and research in the Antarctic, researchers captured what seemed to be the signal of a high-energy particle. This would be all well and fine, except for the fact that instead of coming down from above, this particle seemed to be exploding out of of the ground. Despite multiple attempts to explain why this signal was appearing this way, scientists were left with not a lot of options, and one of those has to do with the fact that this strange particle just may be proof of another parallel universe that is both exceptionally similar, but also the complete opposite of our own. In order to explain this particle, there would need to be the existence of another universe that was created during the same Big Bang that created our own and exists in parallel with ours. But this universe would have to be a mirror of our own, where left is right and right is left and positive is negative and time runs backwards. It's both the most simple and most complex idea that all started with one tiny, strange particle.
Alright, at number 10, we're going to be kicking off this list with the multiverse theory. If anyone at home is not a fan of science or has never picked up a comic book, then you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. Information on this topic goes deeper than a fat kid in a ball pit, so I'm going to give you the Cole's notes on this. Since 1957, when physicist Hugh Everett first suggested it, scientists have proposed the idea that we could be living in an infinite landscape of universes. There are a ton of theories on how this multiverse is composed, and I am not smart enough to break them all down for you, but I'll give you one example. A common idea is that there's a landscape of universes which are flat and go on forever, with universes sitting beside each other. Because this landscape is infinite, you can have universes that are drastically different. There could be universes where superheroes are real, and people read comic books about ordinary people to try and escape the stress of their super-filled life. And there could be universes that are so similar to ours but slightly off. Like you could have blonde hair instead of brown hair, or Twinkies could be healthy.
With that tragic performance from Che, now coming in at number 9 are the Crossroads. So back in November of 1986, Pedro Oliva Ramirez was making his way from Sevilla to his home in Alcalá de Guadaira. I hope I said that right. As he was turning a corner, he found himself on a 6-lane highway that had never been on the route before. Either way, he hadn't done the journey for a while, so he assumed it could have been new. He continued down the highway, but he started seeing weird things like 20-story housing units, 2 feet high grass bordering the highway, and just unidentified metallic structures. After finally clocking something was off, he suddenly felt hot as hell in the car and started hearing voices in the distance, one of them which was telling him he was in another country in a different hemisphere. An hour into the drive to seemingly nowhere, Pedro finally gets to a sign pointing 3 ways. We have Malaga, Sevilla, and Alcalá. Hope I said that right, I probably didn't. He took the Sevilla detour, and 5 minutes later he was outside of his house in Alcalá de Guadaira, which literally wasn't even possible because he took the route which would have taken him back the way he came, meaning further away from his house. Like, how did man like Pedro drive 3 hours to a sign and then end up back at home within 5 minutes? He even tried retracing his route but never found the crossroad or 6-lane highway again. And a 6-lane highway going missing, that is a big deal, you guys.
At number 8, we have deja vu, that feeling when you swear you've seen something before, like you can feel it in your bones. Some people think it could be your instincts telling you what's going to happen, maybe like a spidey sense. Maybe we all have spidey sense, we just don't know how to use it yet. Where other people say it's a delay in the communication between your left and right side of your brain. It's like when you're in a conversation with a group of people and you say something, then someone in the group says the exact same thing that you just said, and you're like, you never listened to me, you're being a bad friend. But what if it's none of these things? What if it's you tapping into the frequency of another universe for just a moment? If parallel universe theory is right, there could be infinite universes. So there could be a universe exactly like this one, but just a little bit ahead. Deja vu could be you getting a glimpse into this space for a moment, and then returning back to our reality. This was suggested by physicist Michio Kaku in his book Parallel Worlds. Maybe every time you feel like you've been somewhere before, it's another version of you that has been, and for a brief moment you're connecting to them. If I could tap into this ability, I would make so much money gambling.
Filling on number 7 slot is Lisbia. So back in 1905, a man was caught by police in Paris for attempting to steal a loaf of bread. And I mean, geez, you guys, it's just bread, just let him have it. Cut the man some slack. They ended up taking him to the station and questioning him, and they soon realized he couldn't speak a language. He didn't understand or speak French. He spoke something that sounded sounded like Esperanto but wasn't and had different grammar to it. After trying to communicate with him for hours, they finally found a way to ask him where he was from, to which he replied Lisbia. And at the time, the police just thought that was his way of saying he was from Lisbon, but then he didn't understand or speak Portuguese, which sus, very sus, but again, it's fine because he could have been from Lisbon but been brought up somewhere else and never learned the language. Like, it is fine, I will give you the benefit of the doubt. Strange man. But then, when given a map of Portugal, he had no clue what he was looking at whatsoever, so the officers eventually realized the man meant Lisbia was a country. Whereat no one knows what happened to the man or where he went, but maybe he just crossed over back to his universe and made his way back to Lisbia. I don't know. Can I get a visa? I'd like one.
For number 6, we have strange artifacts. There have been items that are still puzzling archaeologists as to where they have come from and how old they are. It's like when you wake up after a blackout and you find a half-eaten, uncooked frozen pizza on your floor, and you have 30 text messages sent out to your ex and you're like, what happened last night? Well, this is kinda like that, but with more science. One of the best examples of this is the London hammer. It was discovered in 1936 and it seems to be a man-made iron hammer, but it was found in a mound of rock that's over 400 million years old. And I might be wrong about this, but I don't think there was any hammers back 400 million years ago. How did a human tool work its way all the way back to before the dinosaurs? Perhaps it was blasted through a wormhole from another dimension. Hopefully not with the guy who made it still holding on to it. One minute you're blacksmithing a sword, and the next you're getting devoured by an 8-foot tall centipede. There was also the blue rock that was discovered in Sierra Leone. This rock was sent to research labs around the world, but no one was able to identify its origin or link it to any other known rocks.
Coming in at number 5 are the Beatles, and this one is debatable because it really comes down to whether we want to believe this person or not, so let's just go with it. So back in 2009, James Richards was driving home in California with his dog. We love a good doggo appearance. You are a good boy. Don't let anybody tell you different. Now he ends up pulling over because the dog has to pee, and we all know dogs have 3-second attention spans, so off it goes chasing a rabbit. Now James springs into action and starts chasing after her, but trips and hits his head on a rock and ends up unconscious. Like, already this sounds like a very bad remake of Alice in Wonderland without the hallucinogenics, so what is going on here? Now when James finally woke up, he was next to an odd machine and a man called Jonas who claimed he found his body while on a work trip for the interdimensional travel agency that he worked for. Do you have openings, Jonas? Can I apply? What do you need? What do you need for the CV? I'm there for it. Either way, they end up talking for absolutely ages and start discussing the differences in pop culture, because that's apparently the number one thing you want to know about a parallel universe, like not world leaders or climate change. Pop culture. Guess I'm a nerd. Either way, James ended up finding out that in Jonas's universe or dimension, the Beatles also existed. They were all still alive and they were all making music. And I know anyone can say that, but Jonas even gave him a cassette called Everyday Chemistry, which had Beatles songs on it that never existed in our dimension. Those songs are actually on the BeatlesNeverBrokeUp.com if you do want to check them out, but damn Jonas, you have my attention now.
Alright, at number 4 we have the Mary Celeste. This one has been baffling people for centuries. It's one of the greatest missing person stories of all time. It was back in 1872 when the Mary Celeste set sail. It was a cargo ship packed with booze, and it never made it to its destination. It was found off the coast of Portugal with its entire crew missing. Not only that, but the cargo was intact, so they weren't attacked by pirates. The crew still had their belongings on board, so it was not likely that they left by their own will. There's a chance that the whole crew went mad and jumped overboard, or a portal from another dimension opened up and they all got sucked into a different universe. There could have been a bunch of dudes from the 17th century running around in a futuristic world. It would have been like every primetime show from the 90s with a time travel plot. They're from the past, but now they're in the future. What will they do? Find out watching Anchored in Time, 8 p.m. on Fox.
Filling our number 3 slot is the wrong Riverside. This one follows a woman called Carol Chase McElhaney who is driving from San Bernardino to Perris, California. Now on her way there, she passed a sign for Riverside, which is where she grew up, so she decided to make the pit stop there to relive her childhood and have some nostalgic vibes, because we all love a cheeky nostalgic nostalgic vibe, don't we? She started driving to the street she grew up on, but her old house was nowhere to be found, and none of the houses were recognizable to her at all. And it wasn't like everything had been bulldozed over and reconstructed, it just wasn't the same. Straight up, it was different. Freaked out, Carol drove to her grandma's old street to find that that was looking different as well. She then went to the cemetery where both her grandparents were buried to find no cemetery at all, but a fenced up lot with weeds everywhere in its place. At this point, Carol was like, am I being punked? Where is Ashton Kutcher? Like, is he gonna come out? As a final grasp at sanity, she went to University Avenue, a street where there were usually restaurants and hotels, but now there was just a bunch of graffiti and run-down buildings, and the people there were just off. No one was smiling, they were all wearing black, and Carol was getting the feeling that if she spoke to any of them, she'd be stuck in that place forever. But our girl did not give up there. She spent the next few hours trying to find something from her past in Riverside, and when she came up short, she finally went home. Years later, Carol's father died and was going to be buried at the same cemetery in Riverside, and when Carol arrived in town, everything was how it was from when she was young. So how did she happen upon a Riverside from a different dimension that was just bad, and now she's back in the regular one? I don't get it. I don't get it.
And at number 2, we have the cold spot. When you flip your pillow over and it's cold on the other side, that's because there's a small amount of cold radiation buildup on the other side of your pillow from a parallel universe. That thing I just said, that is completely made up. Cold radiation? I'm an idiot. The cold spot is actually an area in our universe that is 1.8 billion light years away. Through what's called microwave background mapping, we've been able to map the cosmic rays in the universe possibly back to the Big Bang. Through this technology, scientists were able to locate this cold spot. The reason this massive field was colder was because it had 20% less mass in it than it should. Why does this area have less mass? Well, because it was just hot girl summer. Don't you remember? Sorry if this cold spot is too skinny for you. Well, actually, some scientists think that this could be from another universe crashing into ours. The force of these universes colliding caused a massive amount of energy to fly out, thus making the area colder. This could be the doorway into another universe where the laws of physics are completely different from what we understand. Now you just need to make the 1.8 billion light year trip to get there.
And finally, at number 1 is the interdimensional tunnel. Now this story actually came from the book Hunt for the Skinwalker, and this particular story is about the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. Now this ranch is infamous for strange happenings. People who have spent the night there have seen things they don't even know how to talk about or explain, so how the hell am I meant to tell you guys about them? I can't. Well, in this book, a hunter that the author met described seeing an interdimensional tunnel open up on the ranch. He saw it through his binoculars, and initially it just looked like a bright yellow circle, but it started getting deeper and deeper, and that wasn't even the worst part. Then a huge faceless creature crawled out of the circle and then disappeared into the woods, and mind you, this massive shining portal was still open for business and ready to pump out more faceless monsters. Like, are we just gonna push that under the rug? I guess so. The hunter left the area ASAP Rocky and never went back there, but he's been utterly convinced ever since that tunnel or portal was to another dimension or universe. And honey, I believe you. You're preaching to the converted.
Starting off this countdown, we have SpongeBob. Who here is a fan of the sponge that lives in a pineapple under the sea? SpongeBob SquarePants. So if you answered yes, then have you seen the 2004 SpongeBob movie? The one where the two goofy goobers, SpongeBob and Patrick, set out to return King Neptune's crown to save Mr. Krabs, and then Plankton tries to take over and yeah. Well, if you've seen this, then in one of the final scenes, there's this whole musical number where SpongeBob rocks out to Goofy Goober. At one point, he bursts into a wizard outfit in white boots while rocking on a guitar. Well, take a look at this image. Do you remember SpongeBob playing on a white electric guitar or a weird peanut one? Let me know. I remember him holding a white electric guitar, but apparently that's not right, and he always had a peanut guitar. No, just no, that's not right. We fully switched universes because SpongeBob never had that guitar, I swear. Moving on to number 9, we have Cheez-Its. But apparently, that tasty cheese cracker is not called Cheez-Its, it's Cheez-It. Either I've been saying it wrong my entire life, or this is proof that we live in a parallel universe. Like, do you remember it being Cheez-It or Cheez-Its? Because honestly, Cheez-It doesn't make sense to me. It needs to be plural because there's more than just one cracker in the box. Now I'm just getting mad here, but someone's out there playing with us, I swear. Moving on at number 8, we have these circle clouds. Ever wondered what life is like in another universe? Well, they might just have circular clouds. Yeah, you heard me. Look at this real image of a circular cloud. Honestly, if I saw that, I would panic thinking that the end is near. Like, it's cool, but also, it's not right. Like, that's a glitch in the Matrix or something. Mother Nature is glitching. Or maybe that's what normal clouds look like in a parallel universe. Who knows at this point? In our 7th spot, we have the twins. Except the guys in this photo aren't twins. They're not even related. Yet they somehow dressed up in identical outfits and appeared at the same place, both reading newspapers. How creepy is that? Like, they even have the same haircut and hairline. Like, what is going on? I mean, the sweater is identical, same brand and logo and color. What are the odds? The only difference is that the man on the left is wearing black socks and the man on the right is wearing white socks. One of them is from a parallel universe for sure. It's the same dude, just our universe is glitching or merging with other universes or something like that. Coming in at number 6, we have the green KFC. So we all know that the KFC colors are red and white, right? Well, not at this KFC location. Since when does KFC have a green building? Hell no, that makes me uncomfortable. Even Colonel Sanders is wearing a green apron thing instead of a red one. That's not normal. That KFC is in another universe, I swear. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the photo glitch. Okay, someone needs to explain this photo to me. It's not edited at all. The girl just somehow appeared to be gray in the photo. Like, it looks fake, am I right? How is that possible? Unless her goal was to be a gray Santa. This one just hurts my brain. Like, if anyone can genuinely explain this photo, then let me know in the comments below. Like, how did she appear colorless when everyone else in the photo is in color? I feel like I'm tripping out. Moving on at number 4, we have C-3PO. Who here is a fan of Star Wars? Hit that thumbs up button if you are. Well, a lot of die-hard fans were shook when they found out that C-3PO does not have an entirely gold body. That's right, apparently he's always had one silver leg. Okay, then explain this to me. How come when I was little, I had a C-3PO figurine that had 2 gold legs, okay? Someone explain that to me. What do you remember though? Apparently, a ton of fans just remember C-3PO being entirely golds. So, is our memory failing us, or are we universe jumping? In our 3rd spot, we have the Berenstain Bears. Okay, disclaimer. Buckle your seatbelts because I'm about to get heated and passionate for this one. So, do you remember the classic kids book being the Berenstain Bears or the Berenstain Bears? Because I remember it being the Berenstain Bears, spelled S-T-E-I-N. But no, I've been living a life of lies and deceit because apparently it's always been the Berenstain Bears. Stain, S-T-A-I-N. What? But I'm not the only one. Thousands of others remember it being the Berenstain Bears. So, theory goes that there are parallel universes out there. In this case, we have the Steen universe and the Stain universe. We lived in the Steen universe during the 90s when the books were out, but then later on, we somehow shifted into the Stain universe. Somehow, the universe ended up overlapping with ours, which is why we remember the Steen books, because they were real, but just in another universe. It's just driving me insane. Like, it was the Berenstain Bears. Okay, why would it be Stain? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, okay? Like if you agree. And at number 2, we have the Looney Tunes. Here's another one that will drive you mad. Or should I say, drive you loony. Sorry, I'll stop with the dad jokes. But do you remember the classic cartoon being Looney Tunes, T-O-O-N-S, or Looney Tunes, T-U-N-E-S? I remember it being Tunes, spelled with 2 O's. And that makes sense because it's a cartoon. But no, apparently it's tunes, like a music tune, which makes no sense again. Hello, it's a cartoon, not a music tune. I just want to go back to the Toons universe, like the T-O-O-N-S universe, because everything just makes more sense there, okay? They probably don't have COVID there. Just saying. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Mona Lisa. Okay, this one really tripped me out. But do you remember the Mona Lisa having a little smirk on her face or a serious face? I remember her always having a slight smirk. Not a huge smile, but just a little something, you know? But in high school, I was taught that she was serious and she didn't smile in the portrait. But get this. In a movie from 1931, it shows the Mona Lisa smiling. This movie is called The Theft of the Mona Lisa. Here's a clip from it. Now, of course, they didn't use the real Mona Lisa for the film, but wouldn't you think that they would get an exact replica for the film? Meaning that she had a smile. Because why all of a sudden would they use a Mona Lisa where she's smiling? Unless back in the day, she was smiling in the portrait, and then somehow we're now in a universe where in the painting, she didn't smile. Okay? But that's not all. In a 1962 Looney Tunes episode titled Louvre Come Back to Me, we can also again see the Mona Lisa smiling.
I can tell you chaps one thing. It's not always easy to hold this smile.
In the clip, she literally says, I can tell you one thing. It's not always easy to hold a smile. Bam! It's just proof that at one point the Mona Lisa did have a smile. You see how worked up I get over this? Something's going on here. We're in a parallel universe. It's tripping me out.